The snow began falling just after dusk, soft at first, a gentle drifting veil that caught the orange glow of the gas station lights. Evan Miller pulled his sedan into the cracked asphalt lot, the wipers squealing as if protesting the cold. His phone had no signal. The highway had been empty for miles. He shut the engine off and listened. The world outside was muffled, like sound itself had frozen. The neon sign for Red Pines Motel buzzed faintly through the white curtain of snow. Half the letters were dead, so it read, Red Pines Motel. He sat there for a long moment, staring at it, trying to convince himself that this was better than sleeping in the car. He wasn't afraid of the cold. He was afraid of the silence. Inside, the lobby smelled faintly of old wood polish and burnt coffee. A TV played somewhere behind the counter, static-filled news about a snowstorm warning for the region. The man at the front desk looked up from a crossword puzzle. He was in his 60s, thin, his skin pale as candle wax. His name tagged read Frank. Roads closed past the junction. Frank said before Evan could speak. Plows won't come through till morning. You're lucky you made it this far. Evan nodded, setting his credit card on the counter. Guess I'll take a room then. Only got 2 guests tonight, Frank said. His voice was kind but distant. You'll be in room 7. Heater works fine mostly. Coffee's fresh till midnight. He handed over a tarnished brass key. Not a card, a key. Evan smiled thinly, pocketed it, and signed the logbook. He noticed the neat, small handwriting of the other 2 guests, room 3, J. Hale, and room 9, L. Porter. Outside, the snow was thicker now, no longer soft, but sharp and driven by wind. It hissed against his coat as he made his way down the row of doors. The motel stretched in a long, low rectangle. His boots crunched on the thin crust of ice, and each step echoed too loudly in the stillness. When he unlocked room 7, a wave of heat rolled over him. The radiator rattled like old bones. The room was simple, twin bed, green carpet, TV bolted to the dresser, and curtains the color of rust. He tossed his duffel bag on the bed and sank into the chair by the window. Through the frosted glass, the world was a blur of white. He could barely make out the faint outline of his car, and beyond it, the looming dark shape of the pine forest. He thought about calling someone, his ex-wife, maybe, though he knew she wouldn't answer. He hadn't told her about the job change or the long drives through the Midwest. She'd said he was always running from something. Maybe she was right. An hour later, Evan was halfway through a bag of chips and a lukewarm soda from the vending machine. The snow had piled high against the door outside, and the TV signal flickered between static and faint talk shows. Something about the storm made time stretch thin. Every minute felt longer than it should. At 10:13 p.m., he heard it. A knock. 3 short taps on the door. Then nothing. Evan froze, his hand still on the chip bag. He waited, heart thudding. Maybe the wind, maybe the pipes. But then, another set of knocks. Louder, closer. He rose slowly, stepping to the peephole. Nothing but white swirling snow. He hesitated, then cracked the curtain open a few inches. A shape moved outside, blurred by the storm. A figure standing at the far end of the motel row, near room 3. It looked like someone in a parka, standing perfectly still, facing the wall. Evan blinked, rubbed his eyes. When he looked again, the figure was gone. He shut the curtain tight. At 10:30, he went to the lobby to clear his head. The snow howled against the door when he opened it, like a living thing trying to push its way inside. Frank was still behind the counter, sipping coffee from a chipped mug. "You okay?" he asked when he saw Evan's face. "Thought I heard someone knocking," Evan said, "and maybe saw someone outside." Frank frowned faintly. Storm does strange things to sound. Echoes off the snowbanks. Makes it feel like someone's out there when there ain't. "Yeah," Evan said, not convinced. "You sure everyone's checked in?" "Far as I know. Rooms 3 and 9 are taken. Didn't see him much. Folks usually keep to themselves in weather like this." Frank gave him a nod, as if to dismiss him, and returned to his crossword. The pencil scratched softly against paper. Evan poured himself some coffee, sat in the corner booth. The heater hummed, the windows rattled. But every few minutes, he glanced at the door. half expecting it to open, half hoping it wouldn't. By midnight, he was back in room 7. He couldn't sleep. The radiator hissed, the wind screamed. He told himself it was just exhaustion, just his nerves. Then came another sound, faint, almost lost under the storm, a voice. Muffled, distant, from somewhere outside. "Let me in." He sat upright. It was a woman's voice. Weak, pleading. He crossed to the window again and looked out. For a moment, nothing. Then movement. A pale figure trudging through the snow, toward his door. Her coat was torn, hair plastered to her face, hands bare and bleeding. Evan's breath caught. He fumbled for the lock, but something stopped him. Because behind her, in the white haze, another shape moved. A taller one, standing perfectly still at the edge of the light. The woman reached the door. Her frozen fingers brushed against the glass. "Please," she whispered. "He's still out there." Evan yanked the curtain shut. His heart hammered. He didn't know what to do. He reached for his phone. Still no signal. The walls felt like they were closing in. Another knock. Softer this time. He forced himself to the door, pressing his ear against it. Silence. Then footsteps retreating, crunching through snow, fading into the wind. He sank onto the bed, trembling. The radiator clanged once, twice, like something striking from inside the pipes. Outside, the snow fell harder, and far down the row, in the faint glow of the motel's flickering sign, room 3's door was standing open. Evan didn't sleep. He lay on top of the blankets, clothes still on, listening to the sounds of the storm press against the windows like a living thing trying to get in. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her, the woman in the snow, her frozen face, the fear in her voice. He's still out there. By 3 a.m., the wind had quieted a little. The silence that followed felt heavier, not peaceful, expectant. He finally stood, rubbed his temples, and decided to check outside. He cracked the door open. The air hit him like knives. Snow had piled halfway up the threshold. His footprints from before were nearly gone. But down the row, something dark interrupted the white. Room 3, the one that had been open. Now the door was shut. Evan frowned. He remembered clearly. It had been wide open when he last looked. He stepped out, boots crunching softly. The motel lights buzzed overhead, each flicker sending his shadow sliding across the snow. The storm had buried everything in silence. He stopped outside room 3. No light from within. He knocked. "Hello? You all right in there?" Nothing. He tried the handle. It turned easily. The air inside was colder than outside. The curtains were torn open, letting moonlight spill across the bed. Sheets tangled, wet boots by the door, suitcase still on the table. But the room was empty. Evan's breath clouded in front of him. He stepped farther in, scanning. The bathroom door stood ajar, mirror cracked, water still dripping from the sink. Then he saw the footprints. Bare feet, leading from the bathroom to the door, and then stopping abruptly halfway across the carpet, as if whoever made them had simply vanished. A drop of water fell from the ceiling. Then another. He looked up. The plaster above the bed bulged slightly, discolored with moisture. He reached up and froze. Something shifted above him. A slow, wet movement. He stumbled back as the bulge split, and a thin stream of water, red-tinged, began to drip down the wall. He bolted. Out the door, across the snow, heart hammering in his throat. When he burst into the lobby, Frank was still there. But this time, the old man wasn't reading. He was standing perfectly still behind the counter, staring out the window. Evan's voice came out ragged. "There's something wrong in room 3. I think someone's hurt. There's blood on the ceiling." Frank didn't move. Didn't even blink. "Frank." Evan took a cautious step closer. The old man turned his head slowly, as if his neck resisted the motion. His eyes looked glassy in the lamplight. "Room 3's been empty for weeks," he said softly. Evan stared at him. "That's not possible. I saw the name in the logbook, J. Hale." Frank's gaze drifted toward the logbook on the counter. The page was open to the entries from earlier. Evan reached for it, flipping through. Room 3's line was blank. The handwriting he remembered was gone. "Must be the cold," Frank murmured. "Gets into people's heads." Makes you see what's not there. Evan's mouth went dry. You think I imagined that? Frank didn't answer. He poured himself another cup of coffee, hands shaking slightly, and said, "Storm's easing off. Try to rest." Evan backed out of the lobby. The air felt thick, heavy, as if the whole motel had exhaled something he couldn't see. Back in room 7, he locked the door, dragged a chair under the handle, and sat there with the lights on. He couldn't shake the image of those footprints ending mid-floor. He tried the TV again, just static. He flipped channels, static on all of them, until one flickered differently. Channel 9. A fuzzy picture appeared, black and white surveillance footage of a motel hallway. This motel. He watched, breath held. The timestamp in the corner read 10:31 p.m., just after he'd seen the woman outside. In the footage, she appeared again, stumbling through the snow toward his door, just as before. She turned, looked behind her, and the camera glitched. When the image returned, she was gone. Only a tall, indistinct figure remained, standing motionless in the falling snow, facing the camera. The screen flickered, then cut to black. Evan shut off the TV. The hum of the static seemed to linger in his ears anyway. He reached for his phone again. Still no signal. The clock on the nightstand blinked 4:02 a.m. Then he heard the door next to his. Room 9. Someone was talking inside. Low, urgent whispers. He leaned close to the wall. Couldn't make out words, just tone, fearful, pleading. Then a sudden thud. Then silence. "Hello," he called through the wall. "Everything okay in there?" No answer. He pressed his ear closer and realized he could hear breathing. Not through the wall, behind him. He spun. The bathroom door was open now. He was sure he'd closed it earlier. The light inside flickered weakly, buzzing. He stepped closer, pulse hammering in his ears. The mirror above the sink was fogged with condensation, as though someone had just been standing there. He wiped a patch clear and froze. In the reflection behind him stood a woman. Pale skin, ice in her hair, eyes wide with terror. He turned, no one there. When he looked back at the mirror, words had appeared in the fog, written by an invisible hand. "Don't open the door." A sound broke the air, a violent pounding, shaking the whole door on its hinges. Evan backed away, chair clattering to the floor. The knocks came again, harder, rhythmic, furious. "Mr. Miller." Frank's voice called from outside, calm but strained. "Open up. I need to check the heat." Evan's mouth went dry. "The heat's fine." No reply. Just the same pounding. He looked back at the mirror. The message was still there, dripping slowly down the glass. The pounding stopped. Silence. He waited for a full minute before he dared move. He crept toward the peephole and looked out. The hallway was empty, except for one thing. In the snow outside his door, fresh footprints, leading away toward room 3. And halfway there, a set of larger prints intersected them. Deep, heavy, as if something massive had followed her. Evan shut the curtain tight, heart hammering so hard it hurt. The storm outside had gone strangely quiet. Too quiet. He sat against the wall, clutching the lamp cord like a weapon, and whispered to himself that he'd just wait for sunrise. But deep down, he knew something awful. Whatever was moving out there, it didn't come from a storm. The storm had come with it. By dawn, the storm had thinned to a white mist that seemed to breathe. No wind now. No sound. Just the slow drift of snowflakes in the pale blue light. Evan hadn't slept. He sat slumped by the wall, clutching the lamp's metal base like a weapon. The heater had died sometime around 5, leaving the room brittle with cold. His breath rose in thin clouds. He stared at the words still faintly smeared across the bathroom mirror. "Don't open the door." He told himself it was condensation, a trick of exhaustion, but he couldn't explain the footprints, or the blood, or the security footage. He needed answers. At 7:12 a.m., he stepped outside. The snow came up to his knees. Room 3's door hung slightly ajar again, swaying gently in the quiet air. He forced himself toward the lobby. Every step made his heart pound harder. He could see the office window now, but something was wrong. The glass was frosted from the inside. He pushed open the door. The bell above it jangled weakly. "Frank." No response. The lobby was empty. The coffee pot had frozen solid, the brown ice cracked and glinting in the light. The logbook still lay open on the counter, but now the pages were warped with moisture. He flipped through them. Blank. Every name, every signature gone. Just rippled paper. "Frank," he called again. His voice echoed through the still air. Then, from behind the office door, came a faint creak. He pushed it open. Frank sat at the desk, or what was left of him. He was frozen in place, literally. His skin white as ice, mouth open mid-word. His eyes, wide and glassy, reflected the weak morning light. His coffee mug had shattered beside him. The liquid inside crystallized like amber. Evan stumbled back, choking on the air. The room was colder than outside. His breath fogged instantly. Something scratched softly against the floorboards behind the desk. He leaned forward, terrified but drawn. There, half buried in frost, was a small wooden box. The lid was carved with a pine tree and the words, "Property of J. Hale." That name again. He knelt, pried it open. Inside lay a bundle of old photographs. Motel guests, standing in the snow, smiling stiffly for the camera. But each face had been burned out with a cigarette, leaving only black holes where their eyes should have been. At the bottom of the box was a torn photo, half of a couple standing before the same sign outside, Red Pines Motel. The man was unmistakably Frank, 30 years younger. The woman beside him was the same woman Evan had seen in the snow, scrawled on the back of the photo. He followed me through the storm. A noise jolted him upright, a sharp, metallic clang from the hallway. He stepped out and saw the source, the radiator covers rattling violently, one after another, down the line of rooms, like something crawling inside the walls. Room 3's door slammed shut, then room 9's, then his own. Evan ran, slipping on ice, heart hammering. He reached room 7 and yanked at the handle, locked from the inside. He kicked it open. The room was empty, but the mirror glowed faintly, fog forming words again. "He knows you now." The hallway lights began to flicker. He looked toward the lobby and froze. Someone was standing in the snow, just outside the window. Tall, motionless, shoulders too broad, face shadowed by a hood. The figure began to move, slow, deliberate steps toward the entrance. The glass frosted darker with every step. Evan stumbled backward, grabbed the poker from the fireplace near the coffee station. He held it in shaking hands as the door creaked open. The man stepped in. The air behind him twisted the falling snow into a spiral. He was wrong in shape, as if built by memory instead of flesh. His coat hung in tatters, ice grown thick on his skin, his face pale and smooth, like snow carved into a human outline. His eyes were hollow sockets, filled with swirling frost. When he spoke, the sound was not a voice, but wind through broken glass. "You left her out there." Evan's throat tightened. "WH what?" She knocked. "You watched her freeze." He shook his head, stepping back. "No, I didn't know." "You always know." The thing whispered. "You drive away, you forget. That's why we wait in the snow." The word stabbed deep, because for a moment he remembered. Last winter, a snowstorm on the interstate, a car half buried in a drift, a woman waving desperately as he passed. He'd slowed for a moment, considered stopping, but the road was slick, his tires sliding, and fear had whispered, "Keep going." He'd told himself she was fine. Someone else would help. Now her face, the same one from the mirror, stared at him from behind that icy mask. "She called your name," the creature said. And when the storm came again, it brought her back. "And me." Evan swung the poker wildly. It passed through the figure like smoke. The air turned biting cold, freezing his lungs. He ran, out the door, into the snow. His boots hit the frozen ground hard. The world was a blur of white, no horizon, no end. Behind him, slow footsteps followed. He ran until he reached his car, nearly buried under snow. He yanked the door open, dove inside, turned the key, nothing. The engine was dead. The windshield frosted over from the outside, a thin layer of ice crawling across the glass. A shape moved just beyond it, closer, clearer. The tall figure, and beside it her, the woman. She pressed her hand to the window, frost blooming beneath her palm. Her lips moved soundlessly, eyes wide with sorrow. Then, faintly, through the frozen glass, Evan heard her whisper again, "Let me in." He couldn't. He didn't move. He just stared as she began to dissolve, flaking into snow that blew away into the storm. But the tall figure remained. It placed its hand where hers had been. The glass cracked instantly, spiderwebs of ice spreading out in every direction. "Now you're one of us," it said, voice echoing in his skull. The door locks clicked, one by one, and inside the car, the temperature dropped to nothing. His breath froze midair. His heart slowed. The last thing he saw was his reflection in the rearview mirror, lips blue, eyes clouding white, as the snowfall thickened again, erasing everything. By morning, the storm was gone. The world outside looked impossibly clean, white, silent, untouched. The highway lay buried under soft mounds of snow. The pine trees stood like solemn witnesses, heavy with frost. A snowplow crawled along the road's edge around 9:30 a.m., clearing a single narrow lane. The driver, an older man named Henry Wells, spotted the motel sign half hidden behind drifts and decided to check on it. He parked, stepped down, and trudged toward the Red Pines Motel, though half the sign's letters had fallen off overnight. The D and E were gone. It now read simply, Pines Motel. "Hello," Henry called, brushing snow from his coat. "Anyone here?" No answer. The air was heavy with the scent of cold metal and pine. The world didn't feel abandoned. It felt paused. He reached the lobby door, found it standing open. Inside, frost glittered on the walls like silver mold. A single cup of coffee, frozen solid, sat beside a crossword puzzle left unfinished. And Frank, old Frank, sat behind the counter, head bowed slightly, as if he'd just nodded off mid-sentence. Henry stepped closer, uneasy. "Frank," he touched his shoulder. The body tilted, fell, and shattered. Henry stumbled backward, cursing. The skin, the bones, they broke like thin glass. Shards of frost and powder scattered across the floor. Inside the hollow chest cavity, something metallic gleamed. A key. Room 7. He picked it up slowly. The brass felt freezing even through his gloves. Against every better instinct, he made his way down the row of rooms. His boots left deep, solitary prints. The silence pressed in harder with each step, broken only by the soft crunch of snow. When he reached room 7, the key slid in easily. The door opened without a sound. Inside was still. Too still. The bed was neatly made. The radiator was silent. A single duffel bag lay on the chair, its contents untouched. Men's clothes, toiletries, a sales pamphlet for North Star Heating Solutions. On the nightstand, a phone sat dead beside a wallet and an ID. Evan Miller. Henry looked around, uneasy. There was no body, no blood, just a strange coldness that seemed to radiate from the mirror. He turned toward it and saw words faintly etched in frost across the glass. "Don't open the door." The letters began to fade as he watched. He reached out and wiped the mirror clear. Behind him, the reflection showed something impossible. A man sitting on the edge of the bed, head bowed, hands clasped tight together. Evan Miller, frozen stiff, his eyes wide open. Henry spun, nothing there. The bed was empty. But when he turned back, Evan's reflection was gone too. Only a faint outline of a handprint remained, slowly melting down the glass. By noon, the county police arrived. They found the motel almost completely entombed in ice. Frank's remains were carefully collected, or what they could gather. Room 3's ceiling had collapsed, revealing years of water damage and rot, but no evidence of anyone ever having stayed there. And in the snow behind the building, they found a half-buried car, engine dead, windows shattered. Inside, frozen solid, was Evan Miller. His eyes were open, his hands pressed against the glass, as though still trying to get out. Beside him, in the passenger seat, was an empty parka, female-sized, dusted with frost and lined with long strands of dark hair. 6 months later, the Red Pines Motel reopened under new management. The renovations were quiet, local, barely noticed. They replaced the floors, painted the rooms, and patched the cracked sign. On the first night of reopening, the new owner, a young couple from out of state, found the heat sputtering in room 7. The technician came, adjusted the vents, and said it should be fine. They laughed about the cold and went to bed early. Around midnight, snow began to fall again. Light at first, then thick, swirling. The woman woke to a soft knock on the door. 3 short taps. She sat up, confused, glancing toward her husband. He was already awake, staring at the door. "You heard that too?" she whispered. He nodded slowly. They listened. Silence. Then another knock, deliberate, steady. The husband stood, heart thudding, and went to the peephole. Nothing but white snow swirling outside. He hesitated, hand on the lock. "Maybe someone stranded," she said. He started to turn the handle, but then froze. A faint voice drifted through the door. A man's voice, broken and trembling. "Don't open it." 2 weeks later, a snowplow operator found the motel again. 2 cars out front, both half-buried. Inside, the rooms were untouched except for room 7, where the window had been shattered inward, the floor glittering with ice. The couple was never found. But on the nightstand, investigators discovered a note scrawled in pencil, written shakily over a damp page of the motel's logbook. "He's still out there. He waits in the snow. When you see her, don't open the door." Epilogue. Local legend says that when the snow falls heavy on Highway 16, drivers sometimes see a faint glow through the trees, a neon sign flickering weakly behind the drifts. Some say if you pull over, you can still see the Red Pines Motel standing there, perfectly preserved in the frost. A place caught between moments, where guests check in but never leave. They say you'll hear 3 short knocks on your door before midnight. And if you listen closely, through the whisper of the falling snow, you might hear 2 voices outside, one pleading, one warning. "Please let me in. Don't open the door." Then only silence, and the slow, endless sound of snow falling.